Yeah, hi. So I'm Ed Corrie, 32 years old. I had university and then professional tennis career with career high NCAA rankings of number 4 in singles, 2 in doubles, and 2 as a team at the University of Texas. And then went on to play for 6.5 years full time afterwards with career highs of 215 in singles and 142 in doubles. Um, yeah, my junior career, I would say by about 11 or 12, it was quite evident that I was one of the better ones nationally. Started getting invited to some LTA national camps and go on some abroad trips. So I remember going to most of the top European events at under 12, and then similarly at under 14, without much success, to be honest. I think I was best of a slightly weaker age group in comparison. I was born 88, and in comparison to the 87s, which included Andy Murray and other top players at that age, my year wasn't quite as strong. And so even though I was winning a lot of the domestic sort of national events and going deep in those, I was going to the top European events and struggling really. I remember losing quite a lot in qualifying or early rounds for the first few years really of my junior international career. That said, I guess because of the success I'd had domestically and where I sat nationally, I got offered a place to join one of the then national academies, which was at Gosling in Welwyn Garden City, with a really nice boarding school aligned with it. And so started that at year 9, 13, and was there for 2 years or 3 years, boarding school, training in the afternoon, school in the morning. Great training environment. Really enjoyed that time and improved a lot there, before briefly joining Alan Jones's academy for a year or two, before getting invited with a place to start training at the then National Tennis Centre at Queen's, which I joined, I think, when I was 16 or 17. At that point, I think from about 15 or 16, results started to pick up internationally, but again, it was sort of getting to some quarterfinals of some of the big events or round of 16s. I was never winning the top junior events in Europe or anything. And career high ITF ranking of 187, I think could have been better. I was probably playing a higher level than that, but had a pretty severe lower back stress fracture injury in my year before my last year, so under 17. And then when I came back, started to focus more on the futures event. That said, I wouldn't have said I was going to be any world beater at that age. And so at 19, a year after my A levels, I decided to make the trip out to the States and go to college over there.
So yeah, I would say at the age of 15 or 16, I was very set on having a professional tennis career and continuing full time. At that point, I'd been training at the National Academy with the LTA, and then Alan Jones Academy, and then on to Queen's and the National Tennis Centre, and was surrounded by people with professional aspirations, and I was training in really high quality programs and environments. So I went full time after GCSEs and did an A level via correspondence in order to keep my eligibility open for the States. I've got 2 older brothers who both played to a pretty high level and actually both went over to universities over in the States. So that path had been already trodden for me a little bit. So it was always in mind. But as I say, I definitely at that point wanted to continue playing full time and carry on playing professionally. And that stayed the same all the way up until April of 2007, which was the year I ended up going to the University of Texas. Thankfully, the year before, I had been over to Austin, where the University of Texas is, because my older brother actually had married his wife and moved to Austin, Texas. So on a visit over to him, went and met the coach, saw the tennis facility, and actually credit to my dad and older brother who were in communication with the head coach there, saying, he doesn't know it right now, but we think he'll probably come to university. So they kind of laid the foundations for that. I kept in communication a little bit with him, but if I'm being brutally honest, it was out of being polite and knowing that it was a good opportunity and a great sort of backup solution in my mind, but was still set on carrying on full time. And the story I tell now is always has come up a few times since, is that the best result of my life was a shocking loss, because I went out to some futures out in Greece in April of 2007. I had an awesome training block leading up to it here at the National Tennis Centre, which had opened at that point. Was playing some of the best tennis of my career to date, and then went over there and had a couple of scrappy weeks. And then in the third week, I remember being out on a windy outdoor hard court against an opponent I did not rate at all, and lost 6-1, 6-1, and could hardly put the ball in the court. And it was at that moment, coming home, that I thought, I am not ready for this professional tennis journey. My level's not high enough. I should go over to the States. And obviously it wasn't that snapshot. It had been in the back of my mind, but it was a clear moment of I'm not good enough. I should carry on and go to the States. At that point, I was about 1,000 in the world. I think I had 8 ATP points. And then it was pretty smooth sailing because of the groundwork my dad and brother had done. The head coach, Michael Center at the University of Texas, had kept an opening for me, and the scholarship matched with our expectations. And I basically called him and said I'm in, and signed the paperwork, and off I went that August. So that was the start of it. I then jumped right into that, how to describe it, that really expansive autumn college experience right from the get-go. I moved in with 8 other guys on the tennis team, was straight into the social life, the tennis training, the academics, and was really stretched in lots of ways, but absolutely loved it right from the start. I definitely think at the beginning, for most people, and I've had plenty of conversations with players that are starting their college journey, it's going to be quite full on, and you get pushed in lots of different ways. But through that experience, you learn about yourself and really push yourself to get better in all 3 of those areas. And I was fortunate to join a brilliant tennis team, and my tennis level was right for college. You know, it started, I think, at number 3 in the singles, and number 1 in the team that freshman year, and we made a run all the way to the NCAA finals. I think finished the year ranked number 2 in the country. So right from my first year, my freshman year at college, I was absolutely loving the tennis experience, and we're playing on ESPNU in the final there, and I'm getting to play against a lot of top players right around my level, which was just perfect for my development. And then that continued, really. I absolutely loved the experience. Academically, got better and better at understanding what was required, and grades went well. Ended up with a degree in corporate communications. On court, had some really good moments individually, and as a team we made another Final Four. I was able to get to NCAA rankings of number 4 in singles and 2 in doubles. So plenty of winning, but also some moments where, playing against top opposition, many of which have gone on to be top 100, likes of Tennis Sangren, Austin Krajicek, Blaj Roller, all around the years I was there, and plenty of guys there that were better than me as well. So, absolutely loved it. Definitely recommend that route to players that I chat to since. And the other thing to factor in is that I was playing probably 10 to 12 futures a year. I went hard at it every summer. I think I played 9 or 10 futures, and also played a couple during the fall semester. So I'd never lost track or feeling for continuing to play professionally. And that's exactly what I wanted to do when I left. So it was a simple decision for me afterwards. I began playing full-time professionally again. That was in early 2012. I was really looking forward to getting straight out there and being able to really prioritise again on my tennis and being full-time. I think after 4 years, and I ended up choosing to do the extra semester to finish up my degree. Definitely, I think it's a bit of a common experience having chatted to some of the other guys. You're sort of juggling those three balls of the social side, the academics, and your tennis. And after that amount of time, I was really, really looking forward to the opportunity to just focus solely on my tennis and get stuck into that. So it was never really a big decision for me. I went to college as a platform to get better and begin my professional tennis again. So just got straight out there and stuck into some futures in Brazil. Flew from Texas down to Brazil and got on the clay, actually, which turned out to be an infrequent decision in my professional career. And then went on to play for 6.5 years. At the beginning, I think the first year was the vast majority were futures events, and able to build my ranking up. I think I ended my first year full time around 500-ish, and then pressed on from there. Had a very good start to 2013, able to win quite a few futures at the beginning of that year, and that sort of pushed my ranking up into around 300. And then it was more of a mix of challenges and future events, and that sort of gradually progressed to me spending most of my time in the sort of 200s or early 300s and trying to play as many major challenges as I could, qualifying some challenges, obviously having to mix in some futures, and then the occasional tour event qualifying, and was fortunate enough to get wildcards into Wimbledon qualifying every year. Lost in the last round of qualies one year, which still stings a bit, and then was able to play, got a wildcard into doubles of Wimbledon, played main draw there twice, and was part of Davis Cup squad on an occasion, which was definitely a highlight as well. At the end of 2017 was the first time that I really properly considered stopping my full-time career and retiring from professional tennis. I definitely found that those first thoughts around that quite confronting when you've been committed to something and really wanting to achieve great things and working very hard for a number of years. It was quite difficult to sort of stare that in the face and say, right, is it actually time for me to move on? But yeah, at that time, my brother, who was coaching me, and I sort of had a lot of deep chats about it, and we figured that I had actually been making a lot of progress in my game, and the results just hadn't quite come. So we sort of decided to have one more good pre-season, see if we could just tip the scales that little bit more, and then hopefully be able to pick up more results on the Challenger Tour, which was my sort of immediate goal in front of me at that point, which we decided to do, and we did well. Results didn't quite go the way I wanted at the beginning of 2018, although had made some improvements and got that little bit closer. But it was in around March, I think, in a trip to Canada. I took a couple of pretty heartbreak losses, and some of the old habitual patterns were still in there. And 30 years old at that point, in a committed long-term relationship, excited about future opportunities outside of the game. And I guess the combination of all those things led me to make the call then. I think it was the end of March, early April, I decided to stop, but wanted to kind of come to terms with that, enjoy the last few months of playing, and also give all those people around you, family and coach was my brother, part of my family, but support staff, all the people that have been close to you for those years, the opportunity to have their say and get their heads around it too. Because when you've been working together as a little team for quite a number of years, it's quite a big change. So really happy with how I went about retiring and played through the grass court season there. Obviously still with the hope of maybe through pre-qualies and qualies and having a run at Wimbledon or something like that. And was able to play qualifying at Queen's. Ended up losing in pre-qualifying at Wimbledon, but had some really good matches, enjoyable experiences, and also then began sort of getting in touch with all those coaches along the way, thanking them for all they'd done at different stages of my journey. And I think I did a good job of wrapping things up so I could move on with no regrets. And I was also very pleased with how I applied myself throughout my career. So that was it for me. Ended up stopping just after Wimbledon and was straight into supporting my brother, who was also coaching Joe Salisbury. So I played Wimbledon qualifying doubles and lost in the last round of qualies there, and then was on site signing as a lucky loser, but already starting to help coach Joe Salisbury throughout that tournament. And that was when he actually played with Freddie Nielsen, made a run to the semis. So straight into kind of support staff role and helping him with a view to getting straight on the road with him after Wimbledon, which I did, and spent a couple of months with him there, which was just a brilliant opportunity to get out some tour events out in the States, sort of make an immediate switch and have a look at the coaching world, which was great to do with him, playing top tournaments. And I'd been training with him for a number of years, so I was very close with him, had a good understanding of his game and how he approached his training and everything. But then I moved out to Melbourne, Australia to go and join my now fiance, then girlfriend over there, and was actually looking at other career options, applying for a few other jobs and things, coaching a little bit over there. But I'd said to Joe, and I sort of both said to each other when I left him in September, that if he was still looking for a full-time coach and I hadn't found full-time work in something else, then we'd do the Aussie swing, which is what ended up happening. And joined him and Rajiv Ram in January of 2019 and really hit it off with Rajiv as well. And so then started coaching them as a team, and did that through until the end of May. I think the last event I did with them was Rome on the clay. And then ended up moving back from Melbourne, back to the UK with my partner, and was looking at a couple of different things again, but also keen to stay in tennis if possible, looking at the athlete wellbeing and development side a little bit as well. But throughout that process, this role came up at the LTA, which I'm now in, which I'm the National Tennis Centre base hitter and coach. I'm essentially responsible for supporting all of our top players that access the NTC on a regular basis, and that includes organising the day-to-day training schedule, jumping on court in a hitting role, assistant coach role, helping players when their coach is not in for the week or they're between coaches, rehabbing, any of that stuff. And I've been here 7 months now and enjoying it, and sort of still considering my options moving forward, but for now, very much enjoying this role. Yeah, so biggest bit of advice I would give would be to keep asking those that have gone before you, having as many conversations as you can to think about those different options. And if you're 14 or 15 years old and loving your tennis, there are different options ahead of you. Different university paths, full-time paths here and in the States. And it's just really, I think, asking as many people as you can for what they did, how it felt, what their situation was, because it's always very specific to you, and where you're at with your game and your development. And I think the more you can, keep having those conversations and seeing that the different ways that people have done it, and you might find some that were in a very similar position to you, it can really help you make those calls.